Hello, and yet another experiment on the vinyl printable holographic sticker paper. This one's the glitter type, or glitter pattern, I guess you could say, from the UINKIT brand. And what we're doing here is we're doing some white Brilliance ink blocking out. I won't spend too much time on this because I've shown this technique many times in the past, but basically it's blocking out a certain area of these quarter page cards, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, where the imagery is going to go where I don't want too much of the holographic coloring patterning to show through the different images, okay? The Brilliance ink on this type of paper dries and adheres very, very well. Stamping out my imagery on top of this. This is going with the nature set that has all the waterfalls in it, stamping them side by side here, and then going for a little bit of a foreground element down at the base where I've also done some blocking out. You can see where I'm stamping right over the white that I've applied before the imagery here, and you get this real kind of dimensional look to this. All right, adding in some additional texturing down at the base there, just so it's not just only rocks, and it kind of frames things off a little bit better. Softens up that edge of the top surface of that rock. You don't have to put it down there, but I think it looks pretty good. Adding in some additional texturing down in that water. Adding this kind of pebbly surface down there, having some rocks showing through the water or the surface. It kind of makes the appearance of that area seem a little bit more shallow. In other words, that area isn't 10 feet deep or something like that. Nature set number 12 imagery going on this second piece of the vinyl in a portrait format here. Going with some of the rocks and waves down here in the foreground. And then there was a little bit of a space in between those foreground rocks and that background, so I'm going to use the top of the rocks and waves portion, and I'll mask off that bottom portion and just stamp out the top of that, and you get these rocks in between the foreground and that background lighthouse. Stamping out the cloud cumulus up top there, just in a really light blue, and it kind of gave it a nice additional texture over the top of that white, so it's not just a white cloud, but it has some, I don't know, texture and mass to it in the form of that cumulus type of pattern. All right, going into my scene now with the colored pencils. The colored pencils, as I've mentioned before in these holographic printable videos, is that the colored pencil really adheres to the white Brilliance ink very well. You can't go directly onto the holographic because it's just too slick, but adding that layer of the white pigment ink down there really does the trick in terms of being able to use colored pencils on this type of surface. All right, so I'm working my kind of shadow areas on these rocks from light blues into darker blues, and I'll eventually get to black. Warming up the rocks a little bit with this lime green colored pencil. I wanted it to look like there was some, I don't know, moss or something like that on it. But what it also did was it expanded on the temperature range of those rocks, going with something other than cool temperatures of the blues and black, adding in a little bit of that green into it. The green got a little bit too bright, so I just mute it down with some additional color right over the top of the green. Okay, now you see that area right above the the distant waterfall. I'm making a little bit of a halo of tone back there, just so it didn't look so light, and it also frames off that scene in that distant area, adding a little bit more shading to the foreground, and then going right back over some of that black with some white ink, and you can see how it makes that illuminated area kind of glow with a soft light. Okay, now doing that same type of thing here in the foreground, adding in some of this, kind of a thin application of the white pigment ink right over some of these rocks down at the base of the waterfalls, and where you would have that churning water kind of churning up some mist, adding that pigment ink right down that area. Going in and adding some crisp little splashing textures with the 0.7 millimeter extra fine acrylic paint pen. Adding some highlights on the tops of my rocks, making them a little bit more dimensional, so you hit the shaded area with color and black and those different tones of blue that I used, and then going into the highlights with the white. I thought this scene could use a focal point, so I added in the wading fisherman down there. And just like I did on the rocks, I'll treat the fisherman the same with a little bit of that mist or fog right at the base, and I don't know, it kind of sets them into the setting quite a bit more, I believe, by having that element down there. Okay, so going on to this lighthouse scene, I'm not going to do too much to this, but it's going in and oscillating the kind of the soft and dark, or you can say soft and sharp too, with this white pigment ink, putting it over some of those rocks, illuminated my window area and the lamp section of the lighthouse, adding in a little focal point with those birds. It's a subtle focal point, but I don't know, it kind of leads the viewer into the scene a little bit more. And I'm giving the lamp a soft glow, and that's when I decided, okay, I do want to add in a light beam into the scene. I thought it might be too, I don't know, just light in value, like a daytime type of scene where the lamp wouldn't be illuminated. But I thought, let's have some fun with this and add the light beam coming out of the lamp. At certain angles, the holographic sticker paper does get a little bit darker, and you can see that light just like that. Okay, and I made it a little bit too narrow, so I thought I'd flare it out a little bit more. So adding that in accordingly, and there you have it right there. And there's that shimmery light that's inherent in the vinyl holographic paper. And you can see that glittery type of rainbow quality that this paper is. And you can see where I've blocked out a lot of that up top there, but at certain angles you do see some of that color showing through some of that white, but it's a little bit more subtle than the bare area like down here in the water. And you can see all that kind of interactive type of element to this type of paper, depending on what angle you're holding the card at in relation to the light. And it kind of creates a really great looking foundation. Thanks for watching.